Hello and welcome. My name is RafaelVaudrin. I'm a geologist with SkeenaResources, and I will be presenting recent discoveries, the geology, and an outlook for this year of the Eskay Creek project. I will be making some forward-looking statements, and I encourage everybody to come back here and pause the video and read these slides. SkeenaResources is developing two precious metal properties in the Golden Triangle of northwest British Columbia. We are working in Tahltan territory and are proud to have a very good working relationship with the local First Nations. With regards to infrastructure, Eskay Creek is a year-round road accessible project, which is a rarity in these parts of the world. And in the last 10 years, there's been 3 run-of-river hydroelectric projects producing 195 megawatts put in within 10 kilometers of the Eskay Creek project. On to key accomplishments for 2020. We drilled 90,000 meters, which we set out to do in the beginning of the year. The Skeena's share price appreciated by over 350%, which is a good reflection of the de-risking of our projects. Eskay Creek was 100% outright acquired from Barrick Gold. A maiden resource was published for SNP, and the company managed to accomplish over 500,000 person hours worked COVID-free after the onset of the coronavirus pandemic in March. Some historic numbers on Eskay Creek. From 1994 to 2008, over 3.3 million ounces of gold were produced, along with 160 million ounces of silver. The average grade produced was 45 grams per ton for the gold and over 2 kilograms per ton for the silver. The 300 ton per day operation produced 2 products, a concentrate and direct shipping ore. For the direct shipping ore, the cutoff grade was 30 grams per ton, and for the concentrate that was produced after the mill was put in, the cutoff was 15 grams per ton. So everything below these cutoffs during production ended up in the waste pile. Our 2019 mineral resource estimate, I just want to quickly highlight, it's almost a 50-50 split between the indicated and the inferred portions of the resource on a tonnage basis, and the global almost 4 million ounces have a grade averaged over 4 grams between the inferred and the indicated categories. And our 2020 drill program focused on moving as much of the inferred ounces into the indicated category for the pre-feasibility study that is planned to be released this spring. Regional geology. So we have Paleozoic age Stikine assemblage rocks overlain by volcano-sedimentary arc complexes of the Stikinia assemblage, which are the Stuhini and Hazelton group rocks, so Triassic to early mid-Jurassic. That is again unconformably overlain by Bowser Lake group early Cretaceous siliciclastic sedimentary rocks that is following de-amalgamation of the Stikine and Cache Creek terrains onto North America. There are 6 plutonic suites through the area, ranging between 189 to 195 million years old, and the Texas Creek plutonic suite is the most important of these with regards to deposit formation. And then Cretaceous deformation. formed the Skeena Fold and Thrust Belt, which formed regional anticlinoria, synclinoria, and faults in the Iskut River area. We'll get into the local geology here. So you can see the SK anticline here. That's a significant contributor to the deposit formation. And then here is the stratigraphic sequence, which we'll go through the important parts here in a bit. But it's important to note there's synvolcanic faults cross-cutting and bringing in the fluids for the epithermal mineralization here in the area. So structurally, its dominant mineralization control is a fold-bounded extensional basin. So we have extension here, and then these basin-bounding faults are what controls the mineralization on a structural basis. So outside of these faults there is not much found, but inside the basin is where the action happens. So SK Creek is viewed as an atypical VMS. So it's got some VMS characteristics like bimodal volcanic sequences, tabular stratiform sulfide lenses in the mudstones. There's discordant vein and disseminated sulfides in the immediate footwall lithologies. There's sericite chloride alteration in the footwall rhyolites to the contact mudstone, and the mineralization is restricted to the extensional basin, as I just explained. There's also some epithermal characteristics to SK Creek, which the most important one is, of course, the extreme gold-silver enrichment. There's also an enrichment in the epithermal suite of elements, so arsenic, mercury, and antimony. It's got some low temperature hydrothermal features which point to a shallow water depositional environment. So let's go through the formation here in detail. We have the lower mafic volcanism, some pillows on the ocean floor, then that is followed by a period of quiescence where the mudstones have their long time that they take to form. That is followed by felsic volcanism, in this case the SK rhyolites. That is again followed by a period of quiescence. We have sediments forming in the basins, and we also have some black smokers that are fed by these basin bounding structures. We then get some erosion and sedimentation of the rhyolites, forming some proximal gray wackies. We get an epithermal event, bringing in the high-grade mineralization here in these tabular bodies in the sediments, like our new discoveries in the lower and even lower mudstone that we'll get to, these synvolcanic feeder zones in the rhyolite, and of course the contact mudstone, the main mineralization there. That gets capped off again by a mafic unit, the hanging wall andesites in our case, and then we also have a reactivation of some of the structures and a remobilization of some of the mineralization into these hanging wall andesites. Here's a look at some of the lithologies. We have the just mentioned hanging wall andesites here. You can see some chloratized amygdules in the andesite. We have some pepperitic textures where the andesites intruded the unconsolidated and wet mudstones and sediments, where the sediments flow in and fill the, in this case, the matrix of this breccia here. You can see some nice pillows in the andesites here again with a mudstone matrix. Then in the mudstones we see some nice banded sulfides. Then in the footwall rhyolites we can see the nice auto brecciation during the formation of these rhyolite domes. You can even see some flow banding in some of the fragments in the breccia here. Some strongly silicified and weakly chloride and sericite altered rhyolite breccia here. Beautiful flow banding where most of the ash has been replaced by sericite in the rhyolite flows. Some more pepperitic textures with nice rhyolite fragments in a mudstone matrix, and then the dacites that are below the lower mudstones you can see here. So let's look at the process here quickly. So black smokers we get wherever the circulating fluids are high enough in base metal saturation. In other cases we get the white smokers where we can in part see some barite horizons in the mudstones that are formed by the white smokers, but where the black smokers are, we get a nice zonation within the sediments of very high grade gold silver along with the epithermal suite of elements. And then as we go lower into the sediments, the grade of both the epithermal suite of elements and the gold and silver decreases until in the rhyolites we barely have anything left of the epithermal suite, but are still getting 5 grams or more within the rhyolite. So let's look at what that mineralization actually looks like. Here's an example of massive sulfides in the hanging wall zone. That's a massive strata-bound sulfide lens with interflow sediments. So you can see this is all remobilized mineralization from the VMS in the sediments that was brought into the hanging wall andesites. You can see some nice tetrahedrites, sphalerite, galena, stibnite, banded sulfides within the contact mudstone. Here's some massive sulfides, so pyrite, galena, sphalerite, and some chalcopyrite in the NEX zone, also in the contact mudstones. Then there's stockwork veins in the footwall rhyolite, some nice quartz, sphalerite, galena, pyrite, gold mineralization here. And then there's also massive sulfide lenses within the lower mudstones, which is a discovery from 2019 with pyrite, sphalerite, galena, and gold sulfide lens here in that lower sedimentary horizon. So quickly a few highlights from the infill drill program. Pretty impressive width and grades. So you have the gold equivalency grade and the length of the interval here. In the 21C zone there was 7.83 grams of gold over 42 meters. In the 21B zone there's almost 34 grams over 22.5 meters. In the 21A zone it's 25 grams gold equivalent over 35 meters and another 36 grams gold equivalent over 18 meters. And then in the 22 zone, which is all in the rhyolites, we have this intercept of almost 4 grams of gold over 86.5 meters. And also 8.5 grams over 48 meters. Here's a drill on the infill program from this winter in the 21A zone. And here's a drill in the hanging wall area from this recent infill program that was completed. So on to near mine exploration from last year. I will go over a discovery in the even lower mudstones, a new zone that was named the SK Deeps, some results from the water tower area, and also from the satellite pit, the 22 zone conceptual pit. So the lower and even lower sequences is just extending some of the infill holes to go through the lower mudstones where we had the great discovery 2 years ago of 314 grams of gold equivalent over 2.2 meters, and then onto a new discovery in the even lower mudstones of over 6 grams per ton gold equivalent over 4.2 meters. So this is what that looks like in the rock. We have these even lower mudstones, and this is the contact area to the andesite, that Betty Creek conglomerate, the Betty Creek andesites, and this is what that looks like. We have some stockwork veining in the mudstones and some sulfide banding, but very subtle mineralization. The SK Deeps is a discovery in the even lower mudstones and the andesites below it. So we have that high-grade intercept of over 20 grams per ton gold equivalent over 3.5 meters, and it's again in the contact area. So we have interlayered andesites and mudstones here. You can again see some stockwork veining, some banded sulfides in the mudstones. This is what that looks like. Then the mineralization here, which is over 15 grams over 3.8 meters in the andesites. Very subtle again. You can see some replacement style pyrite and sphalerite mineralization here, but very nice grade and a new discovery. In the water tower zone, we stepped out from historical drilling and had a higher grade and wider intercept than anything that was in the neighborhood. And then in the 22 zone, there was some more infill drilling done to better define what's in the pit, and here is an example of the top part of these over 26 meters of 6 grams mineralization, and this is all rock that was formerly considered waste material in the PEA. So we can see it's highly silicified rhyolite and rhyolite breccia, some sericite alteration, but again the mineralization is just some base metal replacement, mostly sphalerite in those rhyolites that hold the gold. Onto some regional exploration results. So we're in the Tom McKay area here, about 5 kilometers from the 21 zones, and we have one intercept that I want to highlight is 5 grams gold equivalent over 10.5 meters. Here's what that looks like in the core. We starts at 5 meters. We're in a felsite intrusive, and taking a closer look here at the mineralization, we can see replacement style galena and sphalerite, some stringers, and distal feeder style mineralization that resembles what we have in the footwall rhyolites. So 5 meters, 5 grams over 10.5 meters for regional exploration. On to 2021 exploration. So the goal is to increase the resource base. We're going to look for open pittable targets as well as underground targets. And we will also be testing some targets outside the mine footprint that are largely underexplored. So there's very good soil and surface rock samples in this whole area that definitely warrant some following up, but the exploration will be based on results that are still pending from last year's program, and it will follow up on anything good there. So for the timeline for the Eskay Creek project, we just completed an exploration program at Eskay. We have commenced a 24,000 meter infill drill program at Snip. Q1 also marked the official start of the Eskay Creek environmental assessment process and the commencement of the Indigenous benefit sharing negotiations. This spring we are going to release an updated resource and are going to start a 20,000 meter infill program for the northern pit extension in the NEX zone. Ongoing throughout the year, infill and exploration results from the past year and the current programs are expected to be released. For Q2, the Eskay Creek pre-feasibility study is planned to be released. The declaration of the Eskay Creek reserves and the commencement of the feasibility study that is planned to be done by Q4 of 2021. So a very busy year for SkeenaResources. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to me, and I'm available for any questions you have. Thank you.